Before people hear your story, understand your character, or discover what you are capable of, they see you. Human beings make rapid judgments from visual information, and although those judgments can be incomplete or unfair, they still influence behavior. The way you dress, carry yourself, maintain your appearance, and enter a room can affect the expectations people form before you say a single word. This does not mean appearance determines your worth. It means presentation is one part of the information people use when deciding how to interact with you. Before people hear your ideas, understand your character, or discover what you are capable of, they see you. This is one of the uncomfortable realities of human behavior. People often form an impression before they have enough information to judge you accurately. A person's clothing, grooming, posture, facial expression, movement, and overall presentation can influence what others expect from them within moments. These judgments are not always fair, and they are certainly not always correct, but pretending they do not exist does not make them disappear. If you understand this, you can stop being controlled by appearances while still learning how to use presentation intelligently. When someone enters a room looking careless, disorganized, or completely disconnected from the environment, people may unconsciously expect less from that person. They may assume a lack of preparation, discipline, or attention to detail. On the other hand, someone who appears clean, composed, and appropriately dressed may immediately create an impression of awareness and competence. The important point is not that clothing magically creates intelligence or character. It is that people use visible information to fill gaps when they do not yet know you. Until your behavior gives them more information, your appearance becomes part of the story they create about you. This is why first impressions can matter so much. Imagine two people with identical abilities entering the same professional environment. One arrives looking prepared, maintaining good posture, and presenting themselves with care. The other arrives looking distracted, poorly groomed, and careless about the setting. Their actual abilities may be identical, but the expectations surrounding them may be completely different. The first person may be given more confidence initially, while the second may have to demonstrate their competence before receiving the same level of trust. This is not necessarily because people consciously decide to discriminate against one person. Much of human judgment happens automatically. People notice patterns and make quick predictions. Understanding this allows you to become more intentional about the signals you send. Your appearance is not about becoming beautiful, fashionable, or wealthy. It is about reducing contradictions between who you want to be and what your presentation communicates. If you want to be perceived as disciplined, but your clothes are consistently dirty and your grooming is careless, there is a contradiction. If you want people to take your work seriously, but you appear completely unprepared for important situations, your presentation may weaken your message before you have spoken. The solution is not perfection, it is consistency. Clean clothing, appropriate grooming, good hygiene, reasonable posture, and clothing that fits the environment can communicate that you pay attention. These details do not prove your character, but they can create an initial expectation that gives your character a better opportunity to be noticed. The same principle works outside professional environments. In social situations, people often respond to the confidence and energy you project before they know your background. Someone who carries themselves with calmness may appear more approachable and secure. Someone who constantly looks uncomfortable or withdrawn may unintentionally communicate that they do not want interaction. Again, this does not mean changing yourself to satisfy everyone. It means understanding that your body and appearance are constantly communicating, whether you consciously intend them to or not. Once you recognize this, you can make deliberate choices instead of leaving your presentation entirely to chance. But there is an important boundary. Appearance should be a tool, not an identity. You should never measure your entire worth through the reactions your appearance creates. People will judge you differently depending on their own experiences, preferences, and biases. Some will appreciate your style, others will not. Some will notice your grooming, others will barely care. Your responsibility is not to control every opinion. Your responsibility is to present yourself in a way that reflects your own standards. When you understand this distinction, appearance becomes less about seeking approval and more about self-respect. You are not dressing well because you desperately need strangers to admire you. You are taking care of yourself because you understand that your presence deserves attention. You are preparing yourself because you respect the opportunities you enter. You are maintaining your appearance because discipline begins with the small things people often ignore. Over time, these small signals combine with your behavior, and that is when perception becomes more powerful. If you appear responsible and consistently behave responsibly, people begin connecting the two. If you appear confident and communicate with composure, the impression becomes stronger. Your appearance may create the first assumption, but your actions provide the evidence. That is why the goal is never to fool people with an image. The goal is to make your external presentation consistent with the qualities you are developing internally. Your appearance communicates more than you may realize because people are constantly reading visible signals before they have enough information to understand your character. The way you dress, groom yourself, stand, walk, and carry your belongings can create an impression about how seriously you take yourself and the situations you enter. This does not mean that appearance accurately reveals someone's personality. It often does not. But perception and reality are not always the same, and other people's behavior is influenced by what they perceive. If you understand this, you can use your appearance as a form of intentional communication rather than leaving the message entirely to chance. Self-respect often begins with small acts that nobody considers impressive. Taking care of your hygiene, wearing clean clothes, maintaining your grooming, keeping your shoes presentable, and choosing clothing that fits properly may seem simple, but these actions demonstrate attention. They communicate that you are willing to invest effort into yourself. When people repeatedly see this consistency, they may associate it with qualities such as discipline, organization, and responsibility. The association may not always be accurate, but it can influence how they approach you. More importantly, these habits can influence how you approach yourself. When you take care of your appearance, you may become more conscious of your posture, your behavior, and the standards you hold in other areas. You begin the day with a deliberate action rather than treating yourself as an afterthought. This can create a psychological shift. You are telling yourself that your presence matters enough to deserve care. That message can influence confidence. Confidence is not created by clothing alone, but appearance can sometimes support the mental state required to act confidently. Consider how you feel when you prepare carefully for an important event. You may stand differently. You may speak with greater certainty. You may feel more prepared because your physical presentation reminds you that you took the situation seriously. This does not mean you should depend on appearance for confidence. It means external preparation can reinforce internal readiness. There is also a connection between appearance and boundaries. Someone who maintains clear standards about how they present themselves may become less willing to tolerate environments that consistently make them feel careless or uncomfortable. They begin asking different questions. Does this place reflect who I am becoming? Does this relationship respect my standards? Does this routine help me maintain the person I want to be? These questions are not about judging other people. They are about understanding your own direction. Your appearance can become a visible reminder of the standards you have chosen. However, self-respect should never become vanity. There is a difference between taking care of yourself and becoming obsessed with how you are perceived. Vanity makes external approval the center of your identity. Self-respect makes your standards the center. A vain person may buy expensive clothing simply to receive admiration. A self-respecting person may choose simple, clean, appropriate clothing because it represents how they want to carry themselves. The difference is internal. One is controlled by the audience, the other is guided by personal standards. This distinction becomes especially important when money is involved. You do not need expensive brands to communicate confidence. A well-maintained, simple outfit can create a stronger impression than an expensive outfit worn without care. Fit, cleanliness, appropriateness, and consistency often matter more than labels. The purpose of appearance is not to pretend that you possess a status you do not have. It is to present yourself honestly and intentionally. You should also understand that different environments require different forms of presentation. What works at a professional meeting may be inappropriate at a casual gathering. What works at a formal event may feel unnatural in everyday life. Intelligence means understanding context. You do not need one rigid uniform. You need awareness. When you dress appropriately for the situation, you communicate that you understand where you are and respect the people involved. Over time, these small signals can influence how others respond to you, but the greatest benefit may happen internally. When you consistently treat yourself with care, you reinforce the belief that your time, body, and presence deserve respect. That belief can influence your choices. You may become more selective about where you go, what you tolerate, and how you spend your energy. Appearance then becomes more than something other people see. It becomes part of the discipline through which you shape yourself. The strongest presentation is not an attempt to deceive people. It is an outward reflection of standards you are genuinely trying to live by. People often underestimate the power of small details because no single detail seems important enough to change an entire interaction. Yet perception is rarely created by one dramatic feature. It is built from a collection of small signals that people notice consciously or unconsciously. Clean shoes, neat hair, appropriate clothing, good hygiene, controlled posture, and the way you enter a room can combine to create an impression of someone who pays attention to themselves and their surroundings. None of these details proves that you are intelligent, disciplined, or capable, but together they influence what people expect from you before you have demonstrated your abilities. This is why details matter. Imagine someone arriving at an important meeting with wrinkled clothing, untidy grooming, poor posture, and a distracted expression. Even if that person has excellent ideas, the first impression may suggest a lack of preparation. Now imagine the same person arriving with simple but clean clothing, organized materials, controlled posture, and focused attention. The underlying intelligence has not changed, but the signal has. People may approach the second version with greater confidence because the presentation creates an expectation of seriousness. The lesson is not to become obsessed with perfection. In fact, perfection can create its own problems. The goal is consistency. When small details repeatedly communicate care, people begin to associate your presence with certain standards. This applies to more than clothing. The way you maintain your belongings can communicate something about your habits. The way you keep your workspace can influence how others perceive your organization. The way you speak, listen, and make eye contact contributes to the overall impression. Appearance is therefore broader than physical beauty. It includes the visible evidence of how you manage yourself. One of the most overlooked details is posture. You can wear excellent clothing and still appear uncertain if your body constantly communicates fear. Looking down, shrinking your shoulders, moving nervously, or avoiding natural eye contact can make you appear less confident than you actually are. On the other hand, controlled posture can create a sense of stability. Standing upright, moving without unnecessary haste, and being comfortable with pauses can make your presence feel more deliberate. This does not mean pretending to be dominant. It means allowing your body to communicate that you are comfortable occupying your own space. Another detail is appropriateness. People notice when someone understands the environment. Dressing too casually for a formal setting may suggest that you did not take the occasion seriously. Dressing appropriately communicates awareness. You've considered where you are, what is expected, and how you want to participate. That awareness can influence how seriously people take you. It is also important to understand that expensive does not automatically mean impressive. A person wearing luxury clothing with poor grooming may create a weaker impression than someone wearing inexpensive clothing that is clean, well-fitted, and appropriate. Labels can attract attention, but consistency creates credibility. You do not need to spend beyond your means to improve your presentation. Often the most effective changes are simple. Keep your clothes clean, choose the right fit, maintain basic grooming, take care of your shoes, and pay attention to posture. These details are accessible because they depend more on consistency than wealth. There is another psychological effect to consider. When you know that you have taken care of the details, you may feel more prepared. Preparation can influence behavior, and behavior influences perception. You enter the room more calmly, you communicate more clearly, you become less distracted by whether something about your appearance looks careless. Your attention can then move toward the actual task. This is why presentation should support performance rather than replace it. Looking prepared is useful, but being prepared is essential. If your appearance suggests competence while your behavior consistently demonstrates incompetence, the initial impression will eventually collapse. The strongest approach is alignment. Let the details of your appearance support the qualities you are genuinely developing. If you want to be seen as disciplined, practice discipline. If you want to be seen as reliable, become reliable. If you want to be seen as confident, learn to manage your emotions and communicate clearly. Then use your appearance to reinforce those qualities rather than pretending to possess them. People may notice the small details first, but what they remember is the pattern. When careful presentation is supported by consistent behavior, the impression becomes much stronger. You are no longer relying on appearance to create an illusion. You are using appearance as the first signal of standards that your actions continue to confirm. The way you present yourself can influence not only the first impression people form, but also the expectations they develop about your behavior. This is one of the more subtle effects of appearance. People do not simply look at you and decide whether you look attractive or unattractive. They often make predictions about how you will act. If you consistently appear organized, prepared, and composed, people may expect you to be responsible. If you consistently appear careless or distracted, they may unconsciously expect less from you. These expectations can influence opportunities, communication, and even the amount of responsibility people are willing to place in your hands. This does not mean appearance determines your future, and it certainly does not mean other people's assumptions are always correct. It means that presentation can create an initial frame through which your behavior is interpreted. Imagine entering a professional environment dressed appropriately, carrying yourself calmly, and appearing prepared. Before you have said much, people may already assume that you understand the importance of the situation. When you then speak clearly and demonstrate competence, their initial expectation is reinforced. Now imagine the opposite situation. If your appearance suggests that you are careless, people may initially look for evidence that confirms that assumption. Even if you are capable, you may need more time to overcome the first impression. This is one reason presentation can influence how seriously people take you. The same principle operates in social environments. When you consistently take care of yourself, people may perceive you as someone with standards. They may become more careful about how they communicate with you. They may assume that you are less likely to tolerate disrespect or unnecessary disorder. Again, this is not because clothing magically creates authority. It is because human beings use visible signals to estimate what kind of interaction they are about to have. Your appearance can become part of the boundary you communicate. If you look like someone who respects themselves, people may become more conscious of how they treat you. But there is an important warning here. Do not confuse appearance with intimidation. You do not need to look aggressive, wealthy, or unreachable to command respect. In fact, trying too hard to appear powerful can produce the opposite effect. People may sense insecurity behind the performance. A stronger presence is usually quieter. Clean presentation, appropriate clothing, relaxed posture, steady eye contact, and calm communication can communicate confidence without demanding attention. The goal is not to make people afraid of you. The goal is to make it clear that you are comfortable with yourself and aware of your standards. Appearance can also influence the way people assign roles. When someone looks prepared and behaves responsibly, others may naturally give them more responsibility. They may be trusted with important tasks because their presentation supports the expectation that they will handle them seriously. This can create a positive cycle. You present yourself with care, people respond with greater confidence, you receive opportunities to demonstrate competence, and your competence strengthens the original impression. But this cycle can work in the opposite direction as well. If you consistently present yourself as careless, people may give you fewer opportunities to demonstrate what you can actually do. The solution is not to obsess over every opinion. It is to understand the controllable factors. You cannot control someone's prejudice, personal taste, or unfair judgment. You can control whether your clothing is appropriate, whether your grooming is maintained, whether you arrive prepared, and whether your body language communicates attention. These are small areas of control, but small areas of control can have meaningful effects. You should also remember that expectations can be changed. A first impression is not a permanent sentence. If someone initially underestimates you, consistent behavior can gradually change their perception. This is why appearance should be treated as an opening signal rather than a substitute for substance. Your presentation may influence what people expect, but your behavior determines whether those expectations survive. The most powerful combination is simple: present yourself with care, then perform with competence. Do not rely on appearance to create respect that your actions cannot sustain. Use your appearance to create an environment where your actual abilities have a fair opportunity to be noticed. When your presentation, behavior, and standards point in the same direction, people receive a consistent message. They begin to see someone who takes themselves seriously, respects the situation, and understands the value of preparation. That consistency can change not only how others approach you, but also the opportunities they are willing to place in front of you. Confidence and appearance often reinforce each other, but the relationship is more complicated than simply looking good and suddenly feeling powerful. Your appearance can influence the way you carry yourself, while the way you carry yourself can change how others interpret your appearance. When you feel prepared, clean, comfortable, and appropriately dressed, you may become more aware of your posture, your movements, and the way you communicate. This does not mean that clothing creates confidence by itself. Confidence develops through competence, experience, self-trust, and the willingness to face uncomfortable situations. But appearance can become one of the external factors that supports that internal development. Consider the difference between entering an important situation feeling completely unprepared and entering after taking deliberate care of yourself. In the first situation, you may spend mental energy worrying about whether you look careless or out of place. In the second, you may feel more settled because you know you have prepared yourself. That small difference can affect how you speak, how you stand, and how willing you are to participate. Confidence often begins with behavior, and behavior can be influenced by the state you create before an event. This is why preparation matters more than expensive clothing. You do not need to wear something impressive to feel prepared. You need to feel that you have taken yourself seriously. Clean clothes, proper grooming, a comfortable fit, and appropriate choices can reduce unnecessary distractions and allow you to focus on the situation itself. When appearance supports preparation, it can become part of a larger ritual of self-discipline. You wake up, take care of yourself, organize what you need, and enter the day deliberately. These actions reinforce the idea that you are responsible for your own standards. Over time, that can strengthen self-trust. There is also a connection between self-trust and the way others respond to you. People often notice confidence through behavior before they understand its source. A person who speaks without unnecessary hesitation, listens carefully, maintains comfortable eye contact, and moves with control may appear more secure. But these behaviors are rarely created by appearance alone. They usually come from internal certainty. You become more confident when you know you can handle whatever happens next. That is why improving appearance should never replace improving skills. If you want people to take you seriously, learn to communicate. If you want professional respect, become competent. If you want stronger relationships, develop emotional maturity. Appearance can support these qualities, but it cannot substitute for them. There is also a danger in allowing appearance to become your primary source of confidence. If your confidence disappears whenever your clothing is imperfect, your hair does not look right, or someone does not compliment you, then your confidence is dependent on external conditions. That is fragile. Strong confidence remains when the external image is not perfect. You should be able to walk into a room without looking flawless and still know that you have value. The purpose of appearance is to express confidence, not manufacture worth. This distinction becomes especially important in a culture where people constantly compare themselves to carefully selected images. Online platforms can create the illusion that everyone else is more attractive, successful, wealthy, or perfectly presented. If you compare your ordinary life with someone else's carefully edited image, you can become dissatisfied with yourself for no useful reason. Smart self-presentation means improving what you can without allowing comparison to control your identity. You do not need to look like another person. You need to look like a well-maintained version of yourself. Confidence also becomes stronger when your appearance matches your environment without becoming a costume. You should be able to dress professionally when necessary, casually when appropriate, and simply when that is what the situation requires. Adaptability is more useful than having one fixed image. The strongest presence comes from comfort rather than performance. When you are not constantly worried about whether people are impressed, you can focus on what actually matters. You can listen better, speak more naturally, and respond more thoughtfully. This creates a feedback loop. Preparation supports confidence, confidence improves behavior, and improved behavior strengthens the way others perceive you. But the foundation remains internal. Build your knowledge, keep promises to yourself, develop useful skills, face difficult situations, learn from failure. These experiences create the kind of confidence that cannot be purchased. Then let your appearance reinforce that confidence rather than replace it. When you take care of your presentation while building genuine competence, you stop needing your appearance to prove anything. It simply becomes another expression of the standards you already live by. The greatest mistake you can make with appearance is allowing it to become a prison built from other people's opinions. Improving the way you look can be useful, but if every decision you make is based on whether others will approve, you have simply exchanged one form of insecurity for another. You begin checking how people react to your clothes, comparing your face and body with others, buying things you do not need, and constantly changing your appearance to fit whatever standard seems popular. At that point, appearance is no longer an expression of self-respect. It has become a demand for validation. Real confidence requires a different approach. You improve yourself because you value yourself, not because you are desperate to receive approval. There is a difference between wanting to present yourself well and needing everyone to admire you. The first comes from personal standards. The second comes from dependence on external judgment. When you understand this difference, you become much more selective about the effort you put into your appearance. You stop asking, "What will make everyone like me?" and begin asking, "What represents the person I want to be?" That question changes everything. You may choose simple clothing because it is practical and comfortable. You may maintain your grooming because you enjoy feeling organized. You may improve your posture because you want to carry yourself with greater confidence. You may develop a personal style that fits your personality instead of copying whatever is currently popular. None of these choices require universal approval. They require self-awareness. You should also resist the temptation to use appearance as a weapon. Dressing well does not make you superior to someone who dresses differently. Expensive clothing does not make someone more intelligent. Physical attractiveness does not automatically create character. A polished exterior can exist alongside poor behavior, weak discipline, or dishonesty. If you begin believing that your appearance places you above others, you have misunderstood its purpose. The strongest presentation is supported by humility. You take care of yourself without needing to look down on anyone else. You recognize that every person has different circumstances, resources, preferences, and priorities. You can improve yourself without turning improvement into a competition. There will also be moments when your appearance is judged unfairly. Someone may dislike your style. Someone may think you look too formal, too casual, too ambitious, too simple, or too different. If you attempt to satisfy every opinion, you will constantly change direction. One person will tell you to dress one way, another will tell you to dress differently, and eventually you will lose your own sense of what feels authentic. You cannot control every interpretation. You can only control whether your presentation reflects your own standards and the demands of the situation. This is why adaptability matters. You can respect a professional environment without pretending to be someone you are not. You can dress appropriately for an important event while still maintaining your individuality. You can understand social expectations without becoming controlled by them. The goal is not rebellion for its own sake, and it is not conformity for approval. It is conscious choice. Appearance should also remain connected to reality. If you want to communicate discipline, develop discipline. If you want to communicate confidence, develop competence. If you want to communicate reliability, keep your promises. If you want people to respect you, learn to respect yourself and others through your behavior. When the external image and internal character contradict each other, people eventually notice. A confident outfit cannot permanently hide insecurity. Expensive possessions cannot permanently hide irresponsibility. A carefully designed image cannot replace substance. But when appearance supports genuine character, the effect becomes much stronger. People see a person who takes care of themselves, respects the environment, and behaves consistently with the standards they display. That consistency creates credibility. Your appearance can influence the door people open for you, but your character determines what happens after you enter. Therefore, improve your appearance, but do not worship it. Take care of yourself, but do not become obsessed with perfection. Dress intentionally, but do not become dependent on labels. Present yourself confidently, but do not make other people's approval the measure of your worth. Let your appearance communicate self-respect while your actions communicate substance. When you reach that balance, you no longer use appearance to beg the world to value you. You use it simply as another way of showing that you have decided to value yourself